Hello everyone, welcome to the 6th episode of our Below the Radar Conversation series. Today we talk with Angela Marie MacDougall, Executive Director of Battered Women's Support Services here in Vancouver, Canada. With our host Am Johal, she discusses how COVID-19 is affecting gender inequality and violence within intimate relationships.
Hi, good morning, Angela. Thank you so much for joining us on Below the Radar. Wondering if we could just begin by if you could introduce yourself a little bit.
For sure. Thank you, Am. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Angela Marie MacDougall. Among other things, I'm Executive Director at Battered Women's Support Services.
Okay, great. And can you share a little bit about the range of services that BWSS provides?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in order to talk about the services, I think it would be good to talk about why Battered Women's Support Services exist. There were 6 women that decided way back in 1979 to take action on male violence against women in relationships. And this was around the same time, interestingly, I'd say, there was a lot of progressive things happening in the late 70s and early 80s, particularly around addressing gender-based violence, violence against women. And there were a lot of feminist organizations that were, sprouting here and there that were really formalizing and focused on working for progressive social change in terms of gender relationships and looking at inequality in relationships. And so the 6 women that were a part of the forming of Battered Women's Support Services back then, they were really clear about wanting to, in a broad sense, working to end inequality and to redress and address violence in relationships. And that was the goal, was to end it. And that continues to be our goal, is to work toward a society, a world where we have equity, and where gender relationships are equitable, and that and intimate relationships don't include violence, abuse, or inequality. And so that's our overarching goal. And then the other goal that the women had at the time was then to deliver support groups. Part of what they recognized, and we continue to recognize today, is the ways in which isolation is a key factor of power and control that an abusive partner will use in a relationship. And so the founding members of Battered Women's Support Services recognize the importance of getting women out of their houses and into a circle where then women can talk and share their experiences and can have hear their story and how similar their experiences are with others, and to know that they're not alone. And so alleviating isolation was really core. And so support groups were one of the main services that the women started with, that we continue today. And a matter of fact, one of the key groups that we offer is a Tuesday afternoon support group that's been operating for over 40 years. And it's a drop-in, and it's a way for women to come together and to grow and learn and to alleviate isolation. The other key service that we started back in the late 1970s, early 1980s was training. Peer support, which is the idea that as women we all have an experience of inequality, equity, and to take action in support of other women, and so train women in order to facilitate support groups, provide crisis response. And so we've been operating a training program for 40 years. And so between the support groups and the training program, that forms our key role, our key services. What's happened since is that then our crisis line formed. And our crisis line has become a very important resource for the community. And the crisis line, up until very recently, was operating during the day, during the week. And through the crisis line primarily, we respond to over 18,000 requests for service, which is anyone that's dealing with an abusive relationship, or perhaps a friend or a family member, a coworker who is concerned about somebody and are calling the crisis line in order to gather information. And so we have a trained team that answers the crisis line and provides support. And so the crisis line, the support groups, the training program are central. And we also offer legal advocacy, which is that we have legal advocates that are experienced in criminal and family, immigration, law specifically, and offer support to anybody that is concerned about an abusive relationship and how gender violence interfaces with the law. So our support workers and our legal advocates provide that support. That includes accompaniment, information, legal information, and accessing other resources, including lawyers. And so that is a key. Those two aspects, the victim services and the legal advocacy, are really important. We have an employment program which assists women that are wanting economic liberation. And what we know is that financial abuse is a key factor and a key tactic of power and control in abusive relationships. And so, so women we have an employment program that's staffed with employment counselors, and they are helping women to understand employment options, but also training and formal and informal educational opportunities and accessing those. We have an Indigenous women's program that is by and for Indigenous women. And it is basically every service that I just described and delivered by and for Indigenous women. Counseling, we have a counseling program with trained counselors many are registered clinical counselors and are providing counseling, trauma-informed counseling. And we offer counseling 6 days a week. So that's an idea of some of the services that we operate, and as well as our systemic advocacy. It's a big part of what we do, which is about the social change and holding systems accountable. Violence in relationships, gender-based violence it's a big problem. It's a huge social problem. It's been with us for a long time in Canada, since we say the making of Canada as a nation involves baking in some of the inequality that contribute to gender inequality in relationships. And so our work is also to work for that social and systemic change.
Thank you, Angela. Now, the present COVID-19 period,
Yes.
I noticed in in media reports, just your organization itself has had an alarming increase by 300% of calls into your organization. What are some of the particular challenges that this moment around the pandemic, how that affects the work of your organization, the kind of the needs that are out in the community?
Right. So I guess to talk about this, I need to go back a little bit to, I had the opportunity to go to China last year. I was a part of a group of activists that met with Chinese activists that were doing organizing around Me Too. And so that was quite great. It was pretty amazing to meet with activists there, and the women that were there are that at the time were taking action on Me Too, and there were some women that were actually detained and criminalized in China for organizing around Me Too. So it was this shared experience of trying to work for a liberation and address sexual violence, sexual harassment. And so when COVID-19 hit in China, in the end of November, December, early January, I started to reach out and to pay attention to women that I know in China and Beijing, Guangzhou specifically, and to get a sense of what's going on, what's going on. And what was clear from the media reports and what I was hearing was that there was a real recognition that the increased isolation that was a part of COVID-19 was having an impact on women, and that there were maybe not, the question about whether there's increased violence is there's already a lot of gender-based violence. There's already a lot of domestic violence. So so I'm not sure that there's been increases. However, the compounding isolation, abusive relationships by design are about isolation. So when we layer over another aspect of isolation, which was a part of the social distancing and quarantining that was being mandated, and that's only just started to, I guess, be lessened right now. I mean, that's the conversation right now, is kind of how we're gonna live with COVID-19 now. And so what we did back in March was we wanted to get out in front of this. We recognized that there was a real importance of ensuring that there are services available, and then letting women know what those services were, and getting the word out. So we worked really hard to get the word out, and we use social media, and we're grateful for the mainstream media and podcasts and other mechanisms that we were able to get the word out. And then when we got the word out, we started to get calls, and we realized right away that we were going to have to scale up our services. And so we turned our crisis line into a 24-hour crisis line in a day. We managed to make that happen. And so then the calls to our line started to progressively increase. They went up, and they hovered between 200 and 400%. It's interesting, the long weekends, the numbers go down on the long weekends. We've had a couple of long weekends since March, and the numbers go down like over the long weekend. And in general, they've stayed, pretty high. And which is interesting because, what we've heard from some of our colleagues in transition houses, where the numbers have gone down, it's been eerily kind of quiet, and that women aren't reaching out. And so, it really just is a function of understanding the ways in which isolation, the compounding isolation, is a factor for women in terms of accessing support. The other thing that's been kind of pretty glaring for us anyway, and we definitely wanted to draw attention to this, was the numbers of women that have been killed by their partners. And so we've observed that that since March, the end of March, through the month of April, for about a period of 40 days, there were 9 women that were killed by their domestic partners. Nova Scotia, there's killings there, that includes the mass killing, but there was another killing, Ontario, Winnipeg, and in Alberta. And there's also some other killings of women that we don't have enough information on to kind of categorize it, but there was a girl that was killed in Thunder Bay. There was another woman that was killed in Saskatchewan. And so we haven't, we recognize that lethal violence by men against women in relationships is it's real, and it is a factor, and it is a part of what is, on the spectrum of gender-based violence. It's on it's on the far spectrum. And for every woman that's killed, we know that there are thousands more that are living in fear. And so we continue to keep our foot on the gas, as it were, in order to get the word out and to make sure that services are available and that women know how to access those services.
Angela, with the schools being out the past few weeks as well, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the particular challenges that you're seeing inside your organizations around that aspect of the restrictions that have been put into place.
Yeah, this is real. Like for many of the women that access our services, they're talking about the pressure of doing the parenting under quarantine, and then the homeschooling and the challenges of that. For many women that access our services, they were already really pressured and struggling with the disparity in the responsibility around childcare and caring for children, and the ways in which children are used as well in an abusive relationship. And so, having children at home, just creates this tight kind of pressure cooker scenario where, everybody is a lot of anxiety, walking on eggshells, being, afraid, because the abusive partner, usually the father, is very, like angry all day long, and acts out in all kinds of ways. And so it's created a lot of complexity for mothers and women that in terms of the women that access our services, and how to support children and how to be with children, and a lot of tension in all of the relationships there. It's I would, for many of our callers, that this is very hard. And we've actually heard from young people who have, they've witnessed their mother's abuse for their whole life. They're young, and they are, they were concerned and are concerned about being in this very intense environment in their families. And so part of what we have, that we've done is to ensure that, our support for children continues through our organization. Can you hear that?
Yeah, it's great.
I live with cats, and they're having a moment here. There's this funny, the woman that was watching the cats behind her and they were fighting. Do you see that on YouTube? Yeah, so I'm not quite as unable to ignore them as maybe she could. The children are struggling. In terms of children that are living in homes where they're witnessing their mother's abuse, they're struggling. There's no question. And the isolation is, really compounds things. It's not easy.
And if someone out there who's listening is in an abusive situation, or someone knows someone who's in that situation, what can they do here in Metro Vancouver, and what are different services they may be able to access?
I love that question, because it's right now, one thing that's been quite unique with COVID-19 is that we're definitely seeing more community engagement on this issue. We see more questions, we see more people interested. There's certainly been way more media stories. We've gotten, the calls are reflective of that, as far as people being concerned, coworkers, friends and family, neighbors. And so this is all really, really good. And that's a good thing, because this is a social problem it's a community problem. And so what I like to tell people to do is, our website has quite a bit of information on it, bwss.org. Our homepage right now is dedicated to all COVID-19 information. But beyond that, so there's lots of links and things there, but beyond that, the website has a lot of information about services, transition houses all across the country, all kinds of things that are important to know if you're concerned about yourself or someone that you know, and that's a really good place to start. The other thing that's on our website is a link. There's an article there, kind of a very quick reading, that is how to help a friend. And it's it's a list of things that you can do to how to help a friend. And, it's a chance to reflect on a way to be supportive and to connect a friend with supports. The other thing that's on the website, which is really, really good, is safety planning. There's quite a long tool that is that can be broken down depending on what you're looking for. And that tool is about how to do a safety plan and how to assess for safety. And that's usually the first thing that we want people to do, is to think and talk about safety. And, we say safety changes everything. So from our point of view, in getting information, learning about how to help a friend, looking at the safety plan, are very easy and informative ways of getting aware. And then from there, there's opportunity to take action. And that way, if anybody wants to talk about how to take action, you're welcome to call us, and we can talk about that, whether for themselves or for a friend or a family member. And so our line is available now 24 hours for information and to talk through anything. Most of us know somebody that it has, or maybe is, experiencing an abusive relationship, and so that's real, and so the number and the website are places to get information. And then if somebody is concerned about themselves right now, this is, you know, an abusive relationship, this is another, the website and the phone are other ways to connect. And if someone's not able to call, the text option is available as well. And that the idea is nobody has to be alone with this at all. And you're not alone. I mean, that's the main thing. We're a community of people that care and are taking action in a bunch of different ways. And that around violence and relationships is one of the really important ways that we need to connect with each other, both in helping people be safer, but also to end it. I mean, the goal, it thrives in silence and in you know, in silence and in isolation. So when we're shining a light on it, like, you know, like we are today, this is a good thing.
Angela, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm just really encouraged by this opportunity, and I know that you've got some, you know, that your network is very engaged and progressive and committed to justice and taking action. So it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us on Below the Radar, Angela.
Thank you all.